Sabir Semerkant went all in on e-commerce. He saw the potential at the very beginning of the e-commerce industry. He believed in it so much that he walked out of his job at a top 6 consulting firm to start his own e-commerce growth agency. Now, nearly 30 years later, he's helped create over $1 billion in incremental sales for e-commerce brands. In our conversation, Sabir details some of his beliefs and best practices, including why it's crucial to hire the right person and not just the right price, his strategy for taking a holistic approach to e-commerce, why you should focus on building raving fans and not just discounting your progress, and he also explains his 8 dimensions of e-commerce, that framework, and why it's so powerful. Here's my conversation with Sabir Semerkant. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulas, and this week, my guest is the founder of Growth by Sabir, Sabir Semerkant. Welcome, Sabir.
Hi, Dave. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. If you would, for everyone, can you tell us what Growth by Sabir is and how it came to be?
Sure. So I'm one of those OGs. I've been around since the birth of e-commerce. I started with internet consulting, then I got into e-commerce when e-commerce became a thing, from the very beginning. So Growth by Sabir is culmination of my entire experience as an operator, e-commerce operator, having grown businesses, an incremental of like $1 billion over the past 25 years. I touched almost every product category and everything else like that, which we'll go into a little bit later on. But Growth by Sabir is an advisory firm that helps e-commerce businesses, D2C, Amazon, primarily focused on like Shopify stores, to really accelerate their revenue growth on their direct to consumer channel.
Okay. And so you've been in it from the very beginning, as you said, and having that span of experience over the past 25 years and seeing what we've evolved to up to right now. Like, what do you see as the biggest problem that e-commerce companies have today?
It's not necessarily the e-commerce companies themselves. It's the owners of the companies. It's the founders of the companies. If I were to like give you one word of advice to the entrepreneurs that are running their Shopify stores and WooCommerce and Amazon seller, is that in most cases, what I see is bad decisions being made around hiring the wrong people, right? And typically, because a lot of these businesses are either self-funded or they have a little bit of a loan out and stuff like that, they start on the lower end of the spectrum, right? So that, like, let's say if they look at 3 different types of talent, right? So one person charges $1,000 per month to do, let's arbitrarily pick one of the disciplines like email marketing, right? Does $1,000 per month, and another one does $2,500, another one charges $3,000, right? And in most cases, what I see is that entrepreneur will choose the $1,000 per month, and that $1,000 per month generates, let's say, for the year, generates like $100,000 in email revenue, right? What if you had hired a better talent at 2,500 or 3,000? They could have generated $500,000 from that email revenue from this, because of the key thing that comes out of that better talent that's out there, right? And it's going to be a lot more impactful on your revenue and the growth of your business. And I see that it's a story of 2 entrepreneurs with the same decision to make, to hire that email marketer. And what happens, right? One person charges, gets that $1,000 per person, right, per month, versus a $3,000 per month person. The one on the higher end of it, the better talent that they hired, right, ends up actually becoming a highly successful business, right, on one end of it. On the other end, what I see, this is experience of 25 years of dealing with thousands of businesses. On the other side of it, the one that invests like $1,000 per month ends up always strapped for cash, and because there is no cash flow from the business, because they're spending money but they're not spending it with the right talent. And by the time they decide that talent was the wrong talent, and they would want to move up the chain to spending that money at 2,500, because they remember the person that presented to them at 2,500 or 3,000, ends up being that it's too late, because you don't have enough money anymore for you to actually hire the right person. So that's one of the biggest things, like besides all of the you know the expertise that comes out of me or any of the people in my network that I recommend my clients work with them. uh, Leave all that to the side. It's just that at the core is the decision making of having the right people on your team, the right people. When I say team, I don't mean just full-time hires. I mean agencies, freelancers, advisors, growth hackers, whoever touches your business, any of your team members, making the right decision from the get-go, and not and that very person that decided on a $1,000 person typically doesn't go to 2,500 and 3,000. They have not learned their lesson. They go to somebody who's 1,250 or 1,500. They make that mistake again for another 6 months, and they again spend money, and then they move up to making a third mistake. They go like, we keep on hiring the wrong people. And you hear this, Dave, also, right, from in your line of work. Well, we have not found the right person. The thing is, you're not looking for the right person. You're looking for the right price. And yeah, looking for the right person might mean that you have to shell out a little bit more to find the right expertise, that's fit for your business, so that they can really scale your business profitably.
Ah, okay. Yeah, so that's a common mistake, is looking for the right price, not the right person. And that little paradigm shift could change everything if you're willing to pay a little more to get the right talent in the door.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to do your homework to find the right talent, right? This is one of the reasons, like belonging to the right network, the right mastermind group, knowing the right advisor. That's what I call my firm, an advisory firm. It's not a consulting firm. That if I, people like me that have been on the ground, and the people even in my network, I have vetted over 25 years, or even the people who have joined my network 3 years ago, they have been vetted over a period of time, so that when you unlock that right person, that's the other thing. Like when you unlock that person to be part of your team, what happens is they unlock their network for you. Also, they go like, oh, you need an email marketing. Here we go. Talk to this guy. He knows how to do email marketing really well, and generates a ton of ROAS out of it, or paid media person, or affiliate marketing, or influencer marketing, any of those kind of things, right? It just one door opens the other door, basically. When you have the right people in your circle.
Okay. And something else too that you advocate with your advisory group is companies, so much of the market is siloed in terms of email marketing or Amazon or whatever it might be. And you talk about companies taking a holistic approach and optimizing the business, rather than just focusing on specific silos where that quote expert may just want you to work on that silo. Can you talk more about why that's important?
Yeah, it's the analogy, like for a person with a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and every nail looks like a hammer, right? So that's the simplest analogy I can give, right? So if you go to a Shopify development agency, they think that your website is the problem, right? So they work on redesigning, because that's how they get paid, right? You go to a Meta ads person, a Facebook ads person, they'll say, "Oh yeah, we can optimize your creative and blah blah blah," and that's your problem. You go to a branding person, your problem is a branding problem, right? What I do is, because I have been in this game for such a long time, I take a very holistic approach, and I call it the 8D method. It's my framework, it's my methodology, and successfully, that's what I mentioned in my earlier part of the intro, has actually gotten over $1 billion in incremental revenue. And as you can see, if you're listening to this audio, I would recommend you also watch the the video of this podcast. There is no hair on my head. Every single follicle was $1 million incremental for my clients. And there's quite a lot of learning you get from it, the beatings you get on your back and the deep scars you get. And you learn one thing is that you have to take a holistic approach, you know. An e-commerce business, just like any other business, it's an organism. It has many aspects to it, right? If you address one part of it, like let's say if your marketing is overly incredibly successful, right, but your operations is not up to par to get those orders out the door, what happens to customer satisfaction? That business is going to die very quickly, right? So that's why you need to look at your business holistically. And when your ROAS is not delivering on your Meta ads campaigns and your Google ads and TikTok and so on, the issue is not just the creative that you're running. So let's hire another agency that does a better creative. That's not the answer, right? You have to look at holistically to see what is the issue. You know, if maybe the issue is the social proofs you have are very poor, they're not really doing a great job, right? And that needs to be fixed. Or your product has an issue, right? Or you, in fact, your landing pages on Shopify, they're not optimized for conversion. So it doesn't matter how great that Facebook ads guy is on the other end of it, and they came highly recommended by Gary V or whoever, you know, Sabri Subi or whoever, right? They're recommended to work with this agency. It has nothing to do with their talent or their capability. It has to do with some other dimension of the business. 8D stands for 8 dimensions of e-commerce, right? That need to be optimized. And because of it, you know, this is why you know, the people who, you know, the founders that practice the 8D method, and we have a program, a formal program that implements the 8D method called the Rapid 2X Accelerator Program. It runs over a 10-week period that I actually coach all the Rapid 2Xers myself. And the goal is within 10 weeks, we want to be trending towards, you know, consistently trending towards 2X daily revenue profitably within 10 weeks. And I can tell you that within the first week, you know, this is having the right expertise and knowing exactly where to hit or what not to turn. You know, you have to know exactly what you're doing. I can tell you, like one of the testimonials on the site is by Oram Brothers. It's Max is the co-founder of the company. Within the first week of optimization, out of the 10 weeks, the first week, they saw 50% uplift in their revenue, and they actually continuously they continue growing, and within the next 10 days, actually they're going to hit a gigantic milestone in their business because they are now an avid practitioner of Rapid 2X and the 8D method.
Wow. Yeah, and speaking of testimonials and case studies, I mean, you've got quite a collection of big name clients here on your site, from Vitamin Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Perry Ellis, Canon Cameras, Bic, and so many more. What do you think is the biggest lesson you've learned from working with such big companies and helping them grow, you know, and scale their companies as opposed to just smaller e-commerce brands?
So with the larger clients, what I tend to do is actually first I focus on agility, right? That's one of the first core things that like if you are a smaller startup, like let's say you're in that $1 million to $3 million range, right? You are more agile. You get things done a lot faster. If you're not doing it, then you need to be doing it, right? That's the plus of being a small business and being very agile and making decisions very quickly and moving from one thing to another. When you are a large business, the likes of Canon, you need to have standard operating procedures. You need to have processes, but with it, you need to also have agility because e-commerce is a field that changes quite a bit, right? It changes overnight. Like, you know, February 1st of this year, you know, with the email changes, that actually ruined a lot of email campaigns out there, right? That happened on February 1st, 2024, and we're recording this right now in June, right? So the same thing, like a couple of years ago, iOS 14 update that caused a havoc, right? You know, with the changes with that, even now, Meta Ads is still trying to figure out how to get out of that situation. And end of this June, the last beacon of cookies and and third-party cookies is dying with Chrome removing that completely. So that's going to even become a worse situation. And that's on the negative side of things. On the positive side of things, you have AI, right? You have AI, and AI is playing a role in even the way you used to do SEO is no longer applicable, because now Google is surfacing AI results as the primary response to a search query, right? So there are things like that that you have to stay on top of it. Things that worked. You mentioned, Tommy Hilfiger, and those are back of my history and stuff like that, and great accolades and great brands. But what's important is really knowing the market today, understanding what's getting in the way today, like things that have to do with the Red Sea, the things that have to do with the issue with Ukraine and Russia, right? The rift that's happening between China and America, right? That all causes havoc in the supply chain. It causes issues with your manufacturing. And yeah, as a business owner, you have to pay attention to those dimensions also, not just, I need to get better ROAS out of my meta ads, right? Or can I find more influencers? A lot of conversations tend to be around those things, where the important thing is you have to also pay attention to these other dimensions that could literally shut down your business if you're not paying attention.
Mm, okay. Another thing too that you've talked about is so many brands, and particularly ones that come to you for the first time, they're on this hamster wheel of constantly discounting and sales and coupons, and it's just never ending. And you talk about the way to sustain profitability is creating raving fans who are willing to pay premium pricing for your product. Can you just talk more about that issue?
Yeah, so that's the pricing dimension, right? You have to. There's a reason why you came up with the product, even if you're drop shipping, right? There's a reason why you chose this product, right? You have to build and position the product, your brand, right? And also even the product itself. Like if 1,000 other sellers are selling this, the example I use is because I'm a cat person. I have a cat. I have a ragdoll kitten. Let's say you found a cat water fountain, right? This cat water fountain, you found it on Alibaba or AliExpress, and you really like it, and because you want to get into this kind of a pet market, right? You buy this product, everybody, and you want to drop ship this. Everybody else, you can find it if you type that into Amazon. You're gonna find 1,000 Amazon sellers that are selling that product, the very same product. So that's a commodity product that you just found, but you really want to get behind this, right? So that's an example of a drop shipping product that has become commodity. But the products for most of the Shopify owners that I see, they have actually created the product themselves, right? But when it comes to pricing, because every guru out there, and because of the history of e-commerce, everything has turned into price promotion, right? 20% off, 15% off if you give me your email, SMS. Yeah, if you give me SMS, it will be 20% off, free shipping, like buy one, get one, all of these kinds of things, right? It has become heavily price promotional, that all the other things that are more value based, you're not generating that. Are you rewarding people who are going to buy from you one time only? Or what about the people who keep on buying from you? Why aren't you treating them differently, right? This is where, when you are looking at sub dimensions of, identifying your VIP customers or frequent customers, and coming up with a loyalty program that rewards people for that buying behavior that you want to instill in them, right? Which makes it very profitable for you, so that even if you acquired that customer for $50 through Google ads, right? Over time, if they keep on buying from you, what happens? That cost of acquisition goes down to zero, and it becomes very profitable for you to keep that customer over a long time, right? Versus if you just attract them through pricing, then you're gonna forever be known as a discounter, right? And you're literally training the consumer that whenever you put up a billboard that says here's a promo code, they will come and buy from you. Whenever you don't have that, that's when your sales are tanking all the time, right? That's where you have to understand the customer journey, you have to understand pricing, and you have to understand your value, and you have to combine these three dimensions in there in order to come up with a value where the consumer really, really sees the value that you're bringing to the table, right? And that's through storytelling, that's through your positioning, that's through your social proofs that you have. That's where, if you present, let's go back to that cat water fountain, right? In that cat water fountain, imagine if I, instead of using the stock photos that AliExpress gives me, right? And that's the lowest hurdle, right? I can just copy and paste the images on my Shopify and start selling it, right? But what if I ignore that? I buy one of the units, I actually photograph it with my cat, did videos with me in those photos with my cat, and now I start telling stories about how Heather, my cat, loves this cat water fountain, right? That's a very different emotional connection. Now what happens? All of the cat parents, people who love cats, they start listening to my story. I have an emotional connection with them. All the others, they have stock photos, right? And that by itself creates a distinguishing mark on a product over just stock photos, and they're just buying some random product.
Freight shippers, are you looking for a better experience shipping less than truckload? Are you tired of unpleasant surprises, reclass, reweighs, and the invoice always being higher than the quote? Well, experience the difference with SPI Logistics. I joined SPI as a freight agent to offer a better experience to our 3PL customers, and I'm now offering that same experience to freight shippers nationwide. You'll get the same personal service you've come to expect when you deal with me, and I've got a whole team of experts that help with all aspects of the transaction from start to finish. Click the link below, or you can email me directly. Thank you. Wow, interesting. All right, and when you get new clients and maybe they've come from this style of doing business, how difficult have you found it to be for them to change their paradigm in terms of creating a new model and getting out of that that discounting mode?
So it's interesting that the way we position the 8D method, especially through the coaching program that's called the Rapid 2X, right? As soon as they see what, when they implement and listen to the tasks that are assigned to them for that first week, as soon as they implement that, right after that implementation, they see an improvement in conversion rate, they see an improvement in their revenue, right? Then because I say that I'm from Missouri, right? I'm a New Yorker, but I say I'm from Missouri because it's the show me state, right? I want to show to Rapid 2Xers, right, to the 8D method practitioners, that try it first. Don't take my word for it, right? Don't take anyone's word for it. E-commerce is all about test, learn, and optimize. That's what it is, because everything in e-commerce throws data at you, whether it's operations, it's your email marketing, it's your any of the paid media channels, influencer marketing, everything throws data at you. Shopify, Google Analytics, Triple Whale, whatever, right? Everything throws data at you. When you pay attention to the right KPIs and then you improve it, right? You see the results. So when they start practicing as part of that Rapid 2X, they implement the first 3 tasks. Like I said, Oram Brothers saw a 50% increase, right? When they see that, they go like, oh, I want to pay attention to this. So over the next 10 weeks, when they're implementing anywhere from 70 to 100 optimizations and implementations, right? The key ones that really matter in a business, right? Not randomly shooting, and they don't even know where they're aiming and what their targets are. They know exactly, because I'm giving them that prescription of what needs to be done. When they do that, they see that, oh yeah, you know what? I'm going to pay attention to this. Like, they never miss a coaching session. They never miss any of the office hours, right? They show up, they ask great follow-up questions. They're really deeply engaged because they see there's results associated with it. Everything in the past that they heard was purely theoretical, right? But now what they're seeing is when they implement what is being prescribed to them, if for each one of these dimensions, these 8 dimensions, well, they actually see results coming out of it. By the way, the average is about 2x, but I can say the top performer is actually experiencing in the current Rapid 2X is experiencing 246% improvement in their revenue, right? And the record holder in Rapid 2X has 6.5x her business, 6.5x in 12 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive. Okay. Now I want to get into some of your history as well. So, like you said, you started as an internet consultant, then you got into e-commerce when it was first going. Uh, did you see, like at that time when the internet and e-commerce was just starting, did you see like the potential for how big of an industry this is going to be?
Sure. So I was actually a senior consultant with one of the big top six consulting firms, you know, and I brought this up to, at that time, it was client server management, right? It's even pre-internet. I said, internet is going to become, I had a meeting with a partner. I was a young Sabir at the ripe age of like 22, 23 years old, right? I'm 51 right now, so I brought that up. I said, hey, internet is going to become a huge thing, right? And everything is going to be done through the internet. Buying, selling, everything is going to be, our entire life will be on the internet, you know? And at that time, internet was like, as if today, if your cousin comes over to you and talks about blockchain and NFTs and crypto, you look at them crazy, right? Because that's typical reaction to it, right? To new technology, right? If you go like, oh, I'm creating blockchain, I'm creating to solve this problem or whatever, you think that they're crazy. The same happened to me. Like when I suggested that we should come up with a practice that was focused on internet consulting, that partner looked at me, and because I was young, and said, "Oh, you know what? That's a fad. It's gonna go away, right? It's not gonna. This is gonna be too edgy. We are very conservative. We don't get into these kind of edgy things, right?" So that was my my last meeting with that partner. The next day I walked in. I said, thank you for giving me that sort of a feedback. I really believe in this. I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna become an internet consultant. The partner in charge, and this is a big six consulting firm. The partner in charge goes like, Sabir, you're very talented. You're going into something I would advise against it. I said, no, I strongly believe in this. I'm going to do this, right? This is going to be huge. I leave, and the first two clients that sign on to this new and innovative way of doing business, one was Jim Cramer, Mad Money from CNBC. He was working on his startup called TheStreet.com, where he wanted to bring financial news. And I became the architect for TheStreet.com. They became my first client. My second client was Tommy Hilfiger, because Tommy Hilfiger was trying to figure out this new medium that came about and how to bring fashion to this new medium that nobody else was doing. So Perry Alice was several years after that, many years after that. So Tommy Hilfiger was the innovator, and I became the internet architect for Tommy Hilfiger. And those were my first two clients right out of the gate.
Wow. So talk about going all in. So you're at a prestigious consulting firm, which is what many people that go to school and get out, that's what they aspire to do. And you have this idea about the internet and you see how big it's going to be. And you literally just quit your job and you start your own agency, and then you land some really big name clients. But how quick did you land those clients after you started?
I think it was 2 to 4 weeks, something like that.
Wow.
Like the thing is, when you are ready, all those things show up, right? If you are ready for it, because at my core at that time, I don't know if you do this, but when Ethereum came up with, with its code base on for you to build on top of Ethereum, right? When NFTs came about, did you experiment with it? When AI came about, I've been living inside of AI almost daily, and actually, it's part of the Rapid 2X to optimize your business using AI effectively, the right way, right? So that's the kind of a thing that if you make it part of you, right, and you are this working in your basement, you're working in your garage, when everybody else is like paying too much attention to what has become normal right now, you are on the bleeding edge of it. And by the time all those other people get caught up, you already have 3 to 5 years of experience, right? When internet was coming about, I was in those BBS, bulletin board services, right? And I'm not talking about AOL. AOL was more of a consumer grade thing. I was more underground at that time, right? And then when internet and there was discussions about doing transactions and issues with, and when there was a birth of HTTPS, which enabled taking credit cards and being able to process secure transactions and stuff like that, I was there, right? And I was already experimenting and learning about these APIs and all these things that were coming out. At that time, Sabir was not known as a growth hacker. To be clear, I was a computer scientist at that moment. In 2001 is when I transitioned over to becoming this revenue growth hacker when I was at Vitamin Shop, and I was a hybrid at that time. I was half business person, revenue growth, and that business went from 12 million to 52 million. That was my first business where I had ownership of the revenue, and I grew it, and it more than 4x in 4 years, right? That business very profitably. And then I just kept on getting better and better at it to the point now, right? 2xing a business in 10 weeks is through this framework has become pretty much the normal for me now.
Okay. All right. And then thereafter, within your career, you were one of the very early, one of the first employees at VaynerMedia. Is that right?
No, so I actually co-founded Ecommerce with Gary V.
Okay.
So I'm a former co-founder of Ecommerce. Ecommerce is a sister company agency to VaynerMedia. VaynerMedia was co-founded by Gary and his brother AJ, and then Ecommerce was co-founded by me and by Gary V. To bring
Okay.
e-commerce expertise to all the media clients.
And like, how'd you hook up with Gary?
There's a YouTube video of it of our story. Is just you can call it serendipitous. He had started VaynerMedia with his brother and four of his brother's friends. Basically, it was six of them, and they were in Tribeca at a co-working space. This is way before we work. At a place called Sunshine Suites. And at that time, I had just finished up my stint at Carol's daughter, and I was starting up my own company. And I was looking for I was looking for a shared office space. So by that time, I was one of the people in e-commerce that had a ton of experience, right? Growing businesses, launching businesses. I was known as the guy that you hire if you want to scale your or launch your e-commerce initiative, right? So I go hunting for office space, and I find this Sunshine Suites in Tribeca, and I didn't know at that time. To be honest with you, I didn't know who Gary Vee was, and not many people knew him. It was the beginning of his journey at that time. So he was renting space there, and right outside it, I was renting space. And then I got to hang out with them at this Sunshine Suites. I was running my company; they were running their agency. And they got to know me. They got to know that I was a guy who had in that network of entrepreneurs, I had the most experience. So they asked me to start trying out these being on a social media events that they were hosting through Yammer and through Twitter at that time and Facebook. And they wanted me to be on this digital panel or social panel because I had the expertise. So I would just volunteer my time and get to know them. And that's how I got to know Gary Vee at that time. And then my business grew, their agency grew. We parted ways, right? We both left that Sunshine Suites. And then years later, when I was actually helping Canon, I get a random call from one of his inner circle people to say, "Hey, we were looking at your LinkedIn. You had an interesting expertise. We're thinking of getting into an agency that's looking into getting into e-commerce. We would like to have a conversation with you." I said, "That's very odd because back then you didn't have that many e-commerce agencies." So I said, "Oh, who's interested in that? Because I know the circle really well, and not many people. Oh yeah, he's an innovator. I don't know if you know the guy. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk." I said, "Oh, Gary V. I know him." I said, "Him and I shared an office in Tribeca. Where is he at?" And it was like 6 people. It goes like, "Oh, it's 200 people now, right?" His agency has grown tremendously, and he's looking into. And you have a very interesting background. I said, "Yeah, just mention my name to Gary. It has been a couple of years. Just remind him that him and I were sharing an office in Tribeca at Sunshine Suites. He would remember. And then if he's up to it, let's have that conversation." Him and I met, and within 20 minutes, we shook hands and we started Commerce.
Ah, okay. And then so you grew that as an e-commerce agency, just basically kind of
First,
forerunning.
we started in New York, then we expanded it within the United States, and then it went global. And then what happened was I'm not an agency guy. I'm an e-commerce operator, right? And that's why one of the reasons my Growth by Sabir is not an agency. It's more of a advising and coaching firm, right? That because the agency model, I'm just not aligned with it. It's not my personality, right? So I exited that partnership, and then I started up Growth by Sabir. And actually, two of Gary's agencies are actually three of them are clients of mine. So Vayner Commerce, the very thing that I founded, are a client, Vayner Media, and also the Sasha Group, which is meant to be for smaller businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's one of the testimonials on your site, which is very powerful. He's got a lot of great things to say about you. Then you've got a couple others here. So Neil Patel. So
Yep.
he's
Great friend of mine, great guy, another OG, another baldy like me.
so how did you and he get to working together?
So him and I have worked both ways, right? He brought me on. Anil brought me on to advise on his clients. At he has two agencies, NP Digital and NPXL. He runs two agencies there. I have hired him to become the SEO and content marketing agency for my clients also, right? So we have a great collaborative relationship there, and over the years, we just have become very good friends. That we constantly collaborate with each other, and they are one of my recommended agencies in the Rapid 2X program.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you also
And
have Matt Higgins from RC Ventures.
and a recurring shark on Shark Tank. So I've
Yes.
worked with not just him, definitely I worked on his portfolio companies, several of them. Momofuku with David Chang. I've worked with Magnolia Bakery, that's also part of his portfolio, and many others, and also on his Shark Tank investments that he has been part of. And he has opened up those doors to actually work with Damon John and Mr. Wonderful and everybody else on the Shark Tank also. So I've worked with them also, and I'm one of those guys that, because of this track record, right? When Shark Tank invest, when the sharks, I'm not involved with the show at all, so I don't want people DMing me to get on Shark Tank. That's not me, right? So I want to be very clear of it. But what the sharks do is, after they make the investment, I'm typically one of the guys that they hire to help that investment grow, so that by the time they do the January update, because the show airs in September, right after Labor Day, and then by the January update, when they come back after the holiday season, they want to do an update. They want to show that since Damon John, Matt Higgins, whoever had invested in it, this business has skyrocketed like this. So I am one of those calls, because I have that expertise to grow these businesses and scale them very fast.
Okay. And then you also teach at Harvard Business School. Is that right?
So yeah, I mean, this is where when you open up doors and you have relationships. What I said at the beginning of the podcast, my relationship with Matt Higgins has been on a mentoring level, helping his businesses. So when he did several times he did different types of programs at Harvard Business School, he pulled me into it, so that I ended up actually guest lecturing at Harvard Business School to MBA and executive MBA students there on one time it was on direct to consumer strategies. The second time was, should your company sell on Amazon, which also became a published article in Harvard Business Review also, which I co-authored with him, with Matt Higgins, and also with two other Harvard professors.
Okay. Now, another question. So with all you've done and all the career accolades and 25 plus years in the business, what's been the best part about your whole journey?
What I would say is, like, even though I've had $1 billion to my name, right, with incremental revenue, and that's a quite a bit of an accolade, right, a claim, right. Well, what I have seen with that, something that has made me very successful, is literally parking my ego at the door, right. So I don't say that, oh, because it's my idea it should work. It's the idea has to stand on its own, right. And given the fact that we are in a field that throws so much data at you, right? It's test, learn, and optimize. If you remove that sort of emotion from it, the ego emotion, which could be very negative. Ego could be positive, but in most cases, I see it as a negative thing, right? When you remove it from the equation and you look at exactly like, okay, what worked, let's do more of that. And can we optimize it so that we can do more of it? What didn't work, can we change the variables and retest it, right? If you treat it almost like a chemistry lab or a scientific lab, right? You can grow businesses exponentially, and I've done that time and time again, right? You know, with Ashley Stewart, in 2 years, 3 million to 30 million. Not only it became a top line revenue growth, but it was also even more profitable. At 3 million, it was at a gross margin, not net margin, gross margin of 35%. At 30 million, it was 65% gross margin. So you can see that how that helps with future growth and cash flow and stuff like that. It's just, I see a lot of ego at play, right, in a lot of businesses, and that's very damaging. It could be coming from the founders. It could be coming from CMOs that you hire because they came from Johnson and Johnson or some sort of a big name company. But the thing is, you're not Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson has billions of dollars that they could waste, and they could make mistakes, and it's okay, and the CMO can get away with it, right? But if you lose $10,000 in your business or $100,000, that could mean your business could shut down because it was a big mistake, right? This is where, hiring the right people and understanding that, it's all about testing. It's a huge lab. E-commerce is a huge lab. And if you treat it that way, right, every single day, if you work 220 days out of the year, because those are calendar days, business days in a calendar year, you can, if you optimize only 1% every day, right? That's a gigantic improvement. Like, let's say that would be 22x growth in a year, right? But if you're a human, you make mistakes, you get sick, you want to go on vacation, people around you could have mistakes and stuff. Let's say that 22x drops down to 10x. Let's do half of that number. Your business can exponentially grow if you set up this behavior of continuous improvement and just focusing on results and just removing the ego from the equation altogether.
Well said. Okay. And Sabir, if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about your coaching program or some of the other services you offer, what's the best way that people can do that?
The best places to go, and you can include it in with the show notes, is or the show description, is growthbysabir.com. So growth by by sabir.com.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll link all that in the show notes as well. All right. Well, Sabir, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you taking the time. That's all the time we have for now, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for having me, Dave.